The land was quiet under the blanket of night. The field stretched wide, the barn stood tall, and the small wooden house was dark, except for the soft glow of a lantern in the kitchen window. Aaron, a farmer with strong hands and a silent nature, sat alone at the table eating a simple meal of bread and soup. His days were long, filled with the rhythm of soil, seeds, and animals. He was a man who rarely spoke, not because he lacked words, but because he found no need to waste them. Outside, the wind moved through the tall grass. The night sky above. The farm glittered with countless stars, as it always did, but tonight something changed. At first, Aaron thought it was a falling star. A streak of bright light tore across the heavens, brighter than any meteor he had ever seen. It grew larger, brighter, and then the air trembled with a strange sound. Not thunder, not wind, but something alive. The light split the clouds as it descended, leaving a burning trail. Aaron stood, his bowl left half full on the table, and stepped outside. The streak of fire fell toward the edge of his field near the barn. It did not vanish like shooting stars usually did. It came down faster and faster and then struck the earth with a blinding flash. The ground shook beneath Aaron's boots. The animals in the barn cried out in panic, and birds lifted from the trees with frantic wings. Aaron shielded his eyes. When the glow dimmed, he saw smoke curling from a fresh crater at the edge of his land. His heart pounded, but his face remained calm, as if carved from stone. Without hesitation, he grabbed the lantern and walked toward the smoke. The night air smelled of burnt metal and something he could not name. The crater was not empty. Lying at its center was a figure, strange and beautiful, wrapped in dark silver armor that glowed faintly with lines of blue. It was not a machine. The figure moved weakly, struggling to rise, but then collapsed again. Aaron stepped closer. The armor was cracked in places, and beneath it he saw pale skin and faint red blood that shimmered strangely under the starlight. It was a woman, though not quite like any woman he had seen before. Her hair was silver white, her eyes half closed but glowing faintly with light of their own. She was wounded badly. Aaron crouched beside her. She made a faint sound, a word in a language he could not understand, then fell silent. He could see her chest rising and falling in weak breaths. Fear touched him then. This was no ordinary traveler. She had fallen from the sky, from the stars themselves. For a moment he considered walking away, letting the world decide her fate. But his heart did not allow it. She was alive. She needed help. That was all that mattered. Aaron slid his arms beneath her fragile frame. Though she wore armor, she felt strangely light. Her body was cold, trembling faintly as if fighting to stay awake. He lifted her with steady strength and carried her across the field toward his house. The animals in the barn watched him pass, with nervous eyes, sensing something beyond their understanding. Inside the house, Aaron laid her carefully on his bed. The wooden room seemed too small, too ordinary for such a strange guest, but it was warm and safe. He pulled a blanket over her and lit another lantern. The faint blue light of her armor dimmed as she lay still, as if it had lost power. Aaron moved to the kitchen. He filled a bowl with warm water and brought a cloth. With careful hands, he cleaned the blood from her face and arms, though some wounds he could not understand, as they pulsed faintly with alien light. He did not speak, but his silence carried comfort. Hours passed. The woman stirred faintly, her glowing eyes opening just enough to meet his. For a moment, Aaron thought she might speak, but her lips only formed a broken whisper. Her hand reached weakly toward the bowl of water, and he helped her drink. She coughed softly, then rested again. The night outside grew deeper, filled with the quiet hum of crickets and the far-off howl of a lone wolf. Aaron sat by the bed, lantern light casting long shadows across the walls. He watched her breathe, steady but weak, and his thoughts turned heavy. He had no answers. He did not know who she was, what she was, or why she had fallen. But he knew she had chosen to live, and he had chosen to help her. That was enough for now. At some point, the woman stirred again. Her eyes, brighter this time, fixed on him. She raised a trembling hand and touched his arm, as if asking without words why he had helped her. Aaron did not reply. Instead, he gently placed her hand back beneath the blanket and rose to fetch soup from the kitchen. When he returned, She was watching him with faint wonder. He helped her sit up, supporting her carefully, and held the bowl to her lips. She drank slowly, her eyes never leaving his. To her, every action seemed strange yet kind. To him, it was simply what must be done. When she finished, she whispered, a word again, but this time Aaron understood not the sound but the meaning. Gratitude lived in her tone. She sank back into the bed, her strength fading once more. Aaron covered her with the blanket and set the empty bowl aside. The night grew quiet again. Aaron returned to the chair by her side, resting his arms on his knees. His lantern burned low, casting a soft glow on the wounded woman who had fallen from the stars. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. Perhaps danger, perhaps answers. But in his silent heart, he knew this moment was the beginning of something larger than the life he had known. The farm was still, the world asleep, yet in one small wooden house a secret lived. A secret wrapped in silver armor, breathing softly beneath the care of a silent human farmer who had offered hay, warm soup, and his unspoken courage. And as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Aaron kept his silent watch, unaware that the sky above still burned with ships searching for the one who had fallen. The morning sun spread across the farm, painting the fields gold. Dew clung to the grass and the animals stirred in their pens. Aaron stepped out of the house, his boots pressing into the soft soil. He carried a bucket of water to the animals, feeding them one by one, his movements steady and silent. His mind, however, was not at ease. Inside his house, lying in his bed, rested the strange woman who had fallen from the sky. He glanced back at the small window of his room. She had not moved since dawn. He could not stay outside long. When the animals were cared for, he returned inside and found her awake. Her glowing eyes followed him as he entered. She tried to speak, but her words were broken, sounds twisted in a language that was not his. Still, her tone carried meaning. Aaron placed fresh water beside her bed, then walked to the kitchen. He poured hot soup into a bowl, brought it to her, and helped her sit up. She drank slowly, the warmth bringing color back to her pale face. Her hand touched her chest, then pointed to him. She repeated a word several times as if urging him to understand. Aaron remained quiet, his brow furrowed in thought. After a moment he nodded. He could not know the exact word, but he sensed it was her name. She was trying to tell him. Mira, she whispered at last, the sound clearer, shaped to his language though still heavy with an accent. Her voice was soft like the rustle of wind through dry leaves. Aaron repeated the word once, testing it. She smiled faintly, relief softening her expression. Mira. That was her name. Days passed in this rhythm. Aaron cared for the farm in the mornings and spent the rest of his time tending to Mira. Her strength returned little by little. She was able to walk short steps with his help. Her wounds healed, though the glowing lines across her armor remained dim. At night she sat by the window, watching the stars with silent longing. Though their words were few, they found ways to understand each other. Mira pointed at objects, spoke their names in her tongue, and waited until Aaron answered with his word. In this way they shared simple language piece by piece. She learned water, bread, fire, while Aaron learned strange words that carried the same meaning in her voice. Yet beneath her calm, Mira carried fear. At night, when she thought Aaron slept, she often touched the strange device on her wrist. It flickered with weak blue light. Sometimes it made soft pulses, as if calling to someone far away. When it grew quiet again, her face showed both relief and sorrow. One evening, as they ate together by the lantern, Mira placed her hand over her chest and then made a gesture of flight, her fingers sweeping upward like a bird rising. She spoke words Aaron did not know, but her eyes told him enough. She was from the stars. She had fallen, wounded, hunted. Aaron listened, silent as always. His rough hands broke a piece of bread, and he handed it to her without judgment. Mira took it and ate slowly, her gaze fixed on him as if she wondered why he showed no fear. To him, it did not matter whether she came from across the ocean or across the stars. She needed help, and he had given it. That was enough. But the world beyond the farm had begun to notice. The town nearby whispered of strange lights seen in the sky. A merchant who passed through the village claimed he heard thunder at night, though the sky was clear. Others spoke of animals acting restless as if sensing danger. Though no one mentioned the farmer's house, Aaron knew that secrets did not stay hidden forever. One night, Mira stood outside near the barn. She gazed at the sky, her silver hair shining in the moonlight. Aaron approached quietly, carrying a lantern. She turned to him, her face troubled. She pointed at the stars and then at the ground, shaking her head. Her voice broke with urgency. "They search," she said in broken human words. "Not safe." Aaron looked at the wide, dark sky. He could see nothing, only distant stars, but he trusted her warning. She stepped closer, her hand gripping his arm with strength that surprised him. Her eyes burned with fear and determination. "Danger come," she whispered. Aaron said nothing. He only nodded once, firm and steady. Mira studied him as if surprised again by his calm. She had seen warriors among her people, soldiers with great weapons, yet none had shown the quiet strength of this silent farmer. Inside the barn, Mira examined the tools Aran kept. She touched the old metal of a plow, lifted a hammer, and studied ropes. Her expression was thoughtful. She spoke words he did not know, but her tone was sharp with planning. Aaron realized she was thinking of defense. She expected her pursuers to find her. Over the following days, the farm slowly changed. With Mira's guidance, Aaron built hidden pits at the edge of the fields covered with grass. He stacked hay bales in patterns that could shield them. Mira repaired a small piece of her armor, turning it into a weak but useful light that could blind eyes at night. She moved carefully, for her strength had not fully returned, but her mind was sharp. Aaron worked beside her without complaint. He hammered wood, tied ropes, and carried stones where she pointed. He did not ask why. He did not ask how many would come. He simply prepared because she was afraid, and because he had chosen to protect her. The bond between them deepened in silence. Mira no longer looked at him with guarded eyes. She trusted his presence, finding peace in his quiet heart. Sometimes she laughed softly when he misunderstood her words, her voice like a fragile bell. Aaron never laughed, but his eyes softened when he heard her. Yet the nights grew restless. Mira woke often, her glowing eyes fixed on the sky. Aaron saw her fear, though she tried to hide it. He knew something was coming, something greater than both of them. And his farm was no longer only a place of soil and animals. It had become a shelter for a secret too large to keep. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, a deep sound rolled across the sky. It was not thunder. It was heavier, colder, and it made the earth tremble. Aaron and Mira looked up together. The clouds shifted, glowing faintly with light that was not from the sun. Mira's face went pale. She gripped Aaron's hand tightly, her voice low and urgent. "They are here." Aaron's jaw tightened. He did not speak, but he did not pull his hand away either. He looked at the barn, at the fields, at the traps they had built. His heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. He was ready to stand no matter what came from the stars. And far above the farm, hidden by the dark clouds, engines burned as shadows moved closer to the earth. The night was heavy with silence. Aaron stood in the yard, his lantern glowing faintly, while Mira stood at his side. Above them, the clouds shifted with strange light, and the deep hum of engines rolled across the land. It was not the sound of any machine Aaron knew. It was foreign, vast, and cold. Mira's hand tightened around her wrist device, the broken piece of technology she carried. Its faint blue light flickered, matching the pulse of the sound in the sky. She whispered words in her own tongue, sharp and urgent, but Aaron could not understand. Even without the words, he knew her meaning. They had found her. The animals in the barn grew restless, stamping their hooves and snorting with fear. Dogs barked from the far edges of the valley, and the wind carried the uneasy cries of birds disturbed from their nests. The whole farm seemed to sense the approach of something dangerous. Aaron's eyes narrowed. He walked calmly to the barn and pulled down an old hunting rifle that had hung on the wall for years. It was not much compared to the lights that moved in the sky, but it was his, and it gave him weight in his hands. Mira watched him, her expression unreadable, yet her glowing eyes softened as if she understood his quiet resolve. They moved through the farm together. Mira guided him to the places they had prepared, the pits at the edge of the field, the hay bales stacked like shields, the ropes tied between posts. Every step reminded Aaron how strange his life had become in only a few days. A week ago, he was only a farmer who tended to the earth. Now he was preparing to stand against hunters from the stars. The first ship came down without sound. It did not roar like human aircraft. It slipped from the clouds like a shadow, glowing faintly with pale silver lights. It hovered above the far edge of the field, its shape smooth and sharp like a blade hanging in the sky. Mira's body stiffened. Her face showed recognition and her voice broke in fear. "Soldiers," she whispered. The ship opened, and from its light stepped figures. Tall, armored, and faceless, they moved with precision, their weapons glowing faintly at the tips. They spread across the field in silence, searching, scanning, advancing. Aaron's heart beat faster, but his face showed no fear. He crouched low with Mira beside him, hidden behind the stacked hay. She gripped the weak piece of her broken armor, adjusting it carefully. It gave a faint spark of blue, enough to flash once, enough to blind if used at the right moment. The soldiers moved closer. Their strange voices echoed in the night, sharp and metallic, though no human ear could understand. Mira's body trembled, and Aaron realized this was not only fear of capture. These were her people. She had once stood among them, spoken their words, worn their armor. Now she was their prey. One of the soldiers swept his weapon in a wide arc. A faint beam of light scanned the ground, glowing across the grass. Mira pulled Aaron back just in time as the beam passed inches from them. Her breath was unsteady, but she forced herself calm. She whispered to Aaron, her words broken but clear enough. "Trap ready." Aaron nodded once. He reached for the rope tied nearby. With a sharp pull, he triggered one of the pits. The earth gave way, and 2 soldiers fell into the hole, their armor clanging against stones below. The sound broke the silence of the night. The other soldiers turned sharply, their glowing weapons raised. The air filled with light. Beams struck the hay bales, burning them in seconds. Smoke and fire rose, casting wild shadows. The farm was no longer quiet. It had become a battlefield. Aaron raised his rifle. His shot cracked through the night, sharp and human, unlike the hum of their weapons. One soldier staggered, hit in a joint of his armor. Mira activated her broken device, and a bright flash of blue light burst forth, blinding the soldiers for a moment. "Move," she said, pulling Aaron toward the barn. They ran, the earth shaking beneath the weight of the soldiers' steps. Beams of light struck the ground around them, leaving burning marks in the soil. Aaron's barn loomed ahead, and they ducked inside. He slammed the door shut, bracing it with a heavy plank. Inside, the animals cried out in fear. Mira leaned against the wall, her breath sharp. Her wounds had not fully healed, and the run had drained her strength. Aaron handed her water quickly, his movement steady even as the sounds of armored footsteps drew closer outside. Through a crack in the wooden boards, Aaron saw the soldiers surround the barn. Their lights cut through the night, their weapons raised. He could hear the hum of the ship above, waiting. Mira placed her hand on his arm. "They want me," she said, her voice heavy. "You hide. They not need you." Aaron shook his head slowly. His silence was louder than words. He had carried her from the crater, given her soup and shelter. To leave her now was not in him. The barn door shook under the force of the soldiers. Wood splintered. Mira raised her weak weapon, but Aaron knew it would not be enough. He looked around the barn at the tools, the ropes, the heavy hay bales above. Ideas formed quickly, born not of war but of farming. When the door cracked open, Aaron pulled another rope. A heavy load of hay bales dropped from the loft above, slamming into the soldiers and knocking them to the ground. Dust filled the air. The animals panicked, their cries adding chaos. Aaron fired again, the echo sharp inside the barn. Mira unleashed another blinding flash of blue light, forcing the soldiers to stumble. Together they pushed forward, breaking through the far door of the barn and escaping into the open field. The night air was cold, filled with fire and smoke. Behind them, the barn burned where a beam had struck it. Ahead, the field stretched wide, but more soldiers moved across it, their silver armor glowing under the moonlight. Aaron and Mira stopped. They were surrounded. Mira's shoulders slumped. She whispered words Aaron could not understand, but the sorrow in her voice was clear. She thought it was over. Aaron stood tall beside her. His rifle was low, nearly empty, but his stance was firm. He did not move, did not surrender. His eyes locked on the soldiers as if daring them to step closer. The soldiers paused. For a brief moment, even they seemed unsure. Before them stood not a warrior, not a soldier from the stars, but a farmer. A human farmer who refused to bow, who refused to give up the one he had chosen to protect. The leader of the soldiers raised his weapon, its glow growing brighter. Mira closed her eyes. Aaron lifted his rifle one more time, his heart steady. Then, from the far distance, another sound cut the night. A different hum, higher, sharper. The soldiers froze and looked to the sky. Mira's eyes opened wide in sudden hope. "Rebels," she whispered. And above the burning farm, another ship descended, its lights flashing in challenge to the hunters below. The burning glow of the barn lit the night sky, its smoke twisting into the air. Soldiers in silver armor spread across the field, their glowing weapons pointed toward Aaron and Mira. The farm was no longer a place of quiet. It had become a battlefield between worlds. Above, the new ship descended, its engines sharp and bright, different from the heavy hum of the hunter's craft. Its lights cut through the smoke, and for the first time since the chase began, Mira's face showed hope. She whispered again, her voice trembling. "Rebels." The soldiers shifted uneasily. They looked to the sky, their formation breaking slightly. Aaron did not know who these rebels were, but he understood they were enemies of Mira's pursuers. That was enough for him. The rebel ship hovered low, its doors opening. From within, more figures emerged, but their armor was darker, their weapons leaner. Their movements were fast, not heavy like the soldiers. Shouts filled the night in languages Aaron could not understand, but the clash was clear. The soldiers raised their weapons first, beams of light cutting through the smoke. The rebels answered with their own fire, sharper and more focused. Sparks and fire filled the field as the two alien groups clashed in the middle of the farmer's land. Aaron pulled Mira back behind the low stone wall at the edge of the field. She leaned against it, her face pale, her wounds still slowing her down. Aaron checked his rifle. Only a few bullets remained, but he tightened his grip. His quiet eyes scanned the battlefield. He had no plan to run. Mira touched his arm, shaking her head. "Too many," she whispered. "You hide." Aaron's jaw tightened. He said nothing, but his silence gave the answer. He would not hide while his land burned and the one he had sheltered was hunted. Mira looked at him, her glowing eyes softening with something more than gratitude. She had seen soldiers fall before. She had seen brave hearts break, but never had she seen a man so simple, so silent, stand so firm. The rebels pushed forward, but the soldiers were more in number. Their weapons burned holes in the ground, tore through the stone walls, and sent fire into the fields. The smell of smoke and scorched earth filled the air. Aaron moved quickly, pulling Mira along the wall until they reached the barn's far side. He pointed to the traps they had prepared earlier, their ropes and hidden pits. Mira nodded weakly. As the battle raged, a small group of soldiers broke away, circling toward them. Aaron crouched low, waiting. The soldiers' glowing eyes scanned the ground, searching. When they stepped into the field's edge, Aaron pulled the rope hard. The earth gave way and two soldiers fell into a hidden pit, their armor crashing against the stones. The others raised their weapons, but Mira, leaning against the wall, pressed her broken device. A sudden flash of blue light burst from it, blinding the soldiers. Aaron stepped out from cover, fired his rifle, and struck one through the gap in his armor. The soldier fell. The last of the group stumbled back, disoriented. Aaron grabbed the heavy hammer from the barn door and struck with all his strength, knocking the enemy to the ground. His chest heaved, but his eyes stayed steady. Mira watched him, and for the first time she whispered softly, "Farmer strong." The battle in the field grew fiercer. The rebels and soldiers clashed, neither side giving way. The rebel ship fired beams from its sides, burning into the ground, but the soldiers' larger craft answered with heavier blasts. The farm shook under the power of weapons not meant for human soil. Aaron and Mira ducked behind cover as the ground shook again. A blast struck the barn fully, tearing it apart in a wave of fire. The roof collapsed, sending sparks into the night. The animals cried out, running from the burning wreck. Aaron's face twisted with anger, his home falling apart piece by piece. Mira touched his hand. "Sorry," she whispered, her voice heavy with guilt. "They follow me." "Not you." Aaron looked at her, his jaw tight. He did not speak, but his silence told her that blame had no place between them. His farm could be rebuilt. His choice to protect her remained unbroken. The rebels began to fall back, their numbers thinning. The soldiers pressed harder, their heavy weapons cutting the dark with blazing light. Mira's eyes filled with despair. "They win," she whispered. "If they win, they take me. They take you too." Aaron glanced at the field, the flames, the scattered weapons. His mind worked quickly, not with training, but with the knowledge of land and earth. He grabbed Mira's hand and pulled her toward the windmill at the far end of the farm. She stumbled beside him, struggling, but followed. Inside the windmill, Aaron quickly climbed the wooden ladder, pulling her with him. At the top, the great wooden arms creaked as the wind pushed them. From here, they could see the entire battlefield. Mira's eyes widened as she realized what he intended. "Danger," she said, shaking her head. Aaron did not listen. He tied one of the remaining ropes to the heavy stones used to grind grain. He looked at Mira, then at the field below where soldiers advanced on the rebels. His silent plan was clear. He would use the windmill itself as a weapon, sending the stones crashing down. Mira touched his arm again. "If you do, they see you. They kill you." Aaron's face was calm as if carved from stone. He turned the rope, set the stone, and waited for the wind to swing the arms at the right moment. When the soldiers clustered beneath, he cut the rope. The heavy stone swung wide, breaking free. It crashed into the ground with thunder, smashing into 2 soldiers and sending others stumbling. The field shook. For a moment, the rebels pushed forward again, gaining ground. The soldiers roared in anger, their voices harsh and metallic. They turned toward the windmill, their weapons glowing brighter. Mira gasped, pulling Aaron down just as beams of light struck the upper walls. The wood splintered, fire spreading quickly. The windmill groaned, its structure breaking. Aaron grabbed Mira and half-carried her down the ladder as the building shook. They burst through the door as the windmill collapsed behind them in a shower of flame and sparks. The rebels rallied again, using the chaos to strike harder. The soldiers pressed forward still, but their lines were broken. The battlefield turned wild, fire and smoke covering the land. Aaron and Mira stopped near the low stone wall, breathless. Her hand clutched his arm tightly. She looked at him with glowing eyes full of fear and something more. "You fight for me," she whispered, her voice soft, trembling. "Not your war, but you fight." Aaron looked at her. His silence was steady, his eyes unshaken. He did not need words to answer. But the night was not yet theirs. The larger soldier ship above shifted in the sky, its lights burning brighter. A deep hum grew louder, shaking the earth. Mira's face went pale. "They call more," she whispered. "More come." Aaron looked at the fields that once fed him, now black with fire. His barn was gone. His windmill was gone. His home was broken. Yet his heart was steady. He had given hay, soup, and his silent care to one who fell from the stars. Now he would give more, even if it meant the last of his strength. The farm burned, the rebels struggled, and the soldiers prepared for another wave. Aaron tightened his grip on his rifle, his body straight, his eyes set. He was a farmer. He was human. And tonight he would stand. The night was filled with fire and thunder. Aaron's small farm, once a quiet place of peace, now looked like the front line of a battlefield. Bright lights from alien ships circled above. The ground shook with each landing, and the animals in the barn cried in fear. Aaron stood at the doorway of his farmhouse, his old hunting rifle in his hands. Mira stood beside him, her wounds not fully healed, but her spirit strong. Aaron looked at the field around his house. Traps he had set during the day were hidden in the grass. He knew they would not stop a whole army, but they might slow them. His heart beat fast, but he did not run. He remembered the first night he saw her, broken and weak, and how he had carried her in his arms. He thought of the warm soup, the hay bed, and the trust that had slowly grown between them. That was enough to make him fight without fear. The sound of heavy steps came from the dark. Alien soldiers in black armor moved across the land. Their glowing weapons lit the night. Mira raised her arm, her damaged device flashing faintly. She whispered that the energy left inside was almost gone. If she used it now, it would be the last time. "Do not waste it," Aaron said firmly. "Save it for the moment when it matters most." The soldiers came closer. Aaron's traps worked for a short while. A hidden wire pulled a heavy log, knocking 2 soldiers to the ground. Pits dug in the soil, caught another pair. But more kept coming. Aaron fired his rifle, the sound sharp in the night. His aim was true. The aliens were surprised by the strange old weapon. For a brief time, the humans and the alien woman stood their ground. But the enemy did not stop. A larger ship landed at the edge of the field. From its doors marched soldiers taller and stronger than the rest. Their leader carried a blade that glowed red like fire. His voice carried through the field in a language Mira understood. She translated quickly. "They demand I return to them," Mira said. Her voice was steady but sad. "They say you will be destroyed if you keep me here." Aaron lifted his chin. "Tell them I will not give you up." Mira looked at him, her eyes wide. "Do you understand what you are saying? They will kill you." "Then they will see what it means to face a farmer of Earth," Aaron replied. The leader gave the signal. The soldiers charged. Aaron and Mira fought side by side. Mira used her last weapon charge to blast through the enemy ranks, but the energy faded after one strike. Now she fought with only her will, using broken metal from her armor as a blade. Aaron's rifle cracked again and again. His hands were steady, his eyes focused. The battle raged across the farm. Fires spread through the fields, but still the farmer stood. The aliens underestimated him. They thought him weak, simple, and powerless. Yet his courage turned into something greater than any weapon. His traps, his land, and his heart became his shield. The alien leader stepped forward, raising his burning blade. He pointed at Aaron and said something Mira quickly understood. "He says this is the end." The leader rushed forward. Aaron's rifle had no bullets left. Still, he stood firm. At the last moment, Mira leaped in front of him, taking the strike across her arm. She cried out in pain, but her body glowed brighter as if the wound had awakened something hidden inside her. Energy pulsed from her chest, rising into the sky like a beacon. Aaron held her as she fell to her knees. "What have you done?" he asked. "I have called them," she whispered. "My people who do not believe in war, the ones who wish for peace. I sent a signal earlier, but now they will know exactly where we are." The alien leader lifted his blade again, but before he could strike, the sky roared. New ships entered the air, smaller and faster. They fired upon the enemy with precision. Rebel forces, Mira's allies, had come. The enemy leader shouted in anger as his soldiers were pushed back. One by one, the warlike aliens were forced to retreat to their ships. The ground shook as the enemy vessels lifted off and vanished into the sky. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire and the distant cry of animals. Aaron knelt beside Mira, holding her gently. She looked weak but alive. Rebel fighters rushed toward them, speaking her language, checking her wounds, and thanking Aaron with bows of respect. Though he could not understand their words, he felt their gratitude. Mira looked at Aaron, her voice soft but clear. "You saved me even when you had no reason to. You fought with nothing but your courage, and that courage has changed everything. My people will remember this night." Aaron gave a small smile. "I did only what was right." The rebel commander told Mira they must leave quickly. The enemy would return in greater numbers if they stayed too long. Mira stood, though weak, and faced Aaron one last time. "I must go with them," she said quietly. "But I will not forget. You are only one farmer, yet you showed more strength than an army. Your heart is reckless, but it is also pure. Someday, if the stars allow, I will return." Aaron wanted to speak, but the words stayed in his chest. He simply nodded. Mira stepped closer, placing her hand over his. Then she turned and walked with her people to their waiting ship. The vessel rose into the sky, its light washing over the fields. Aaron stood alone, watching as it vanished among the stars. The night became still again. Only smoke and broken earth showed that a great battle had happened here. When dawn came, the sun rose over the fields. The birds sang as if the world had returned to peace. Aaron walked through his land, past the ruins of his traps and the marks of fire. His farm was scarred, but it still stood. He thought of Mira's promise. Somewhere in the wide universe, she remembered him. He entered his farmhouse, setting his rifle down by the door. The table still held the empty bowl where he once gave her soup. He touched it gently, then stepped outside again. The wind carried the smell of soil and grass, the life he knew best. Aaron breathed deeply. The sky above looked endless, filled with light. Though he was just a farmer, he knew now that humans were not small in the universe. They had something greater than power or weapons. They had hearts that could stand against fear, hearts that could fight for what was right. And so Aaron returned to his fields, carrying with him the memory of the star-born woman, and the night he proved that even the quietest man could change the path of worlds.